Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I arrived from Chicago on Monday. Yesterday I was in Mumbai. Today I'm here. Tomorrow we're in Delhi, and after that back to Mumbai. So I tell my wife I'm at a conference. She thinks I'm on the run, hiding somewhere in the world. But nonetheless, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'll be talking to you this morning about trends that we've observed in the family office market that impact both the families but also the advisors, and in many ways that create alignment between the two. These trends were identified to help families better understand the opportunities, their challenges, grow and sustain their wealth, but also to help the advisors better understand the needs of their clients and ultimately optimize their businesses. And that's why I decided to share those with you. So why focus on trends? Why do trends matter? The first point is that trends represent challenges and opportunities depending on how well prepared you are to face them. Trends change the environment that we're in, and therefore are often a great opportunity to drive innovation. Trends are rarely urgent, but they're often very important. And as you know, people have a tendency to focus on what's urgent more so than what's important. And there lies some of the challenge. And therefore, organizations, whether it's a family business, a family office, or an advisor, need to adapt and prepare themselves for those trends. And sometimes it's the type of work and planning that takes years because those things are complex and hard to address. So how do we identify trends at Family Office Exchange? Well, the way we do it, and the way we've been doing it for 26 years, because we've been around since 1989, is first by working with our community of members. We currently serve 330 families who have family offices, and we work very closely with them. Each member is assigned a relationship manager, so we have a weekly conversation with our members. We know what they're working on. We know what keeps them awake at night. We also serve 150 advisors. Those are players of all kinds. Some of them are estate planners, wealth managers, multifamily offices that serve the family office market. We also have what we call councils, which are peer groups that we work very closely with, and we currently run 13 councils. So we have a council for business owning families, we have a council for CEOs of family offices, one for multifamily offices, and that gives us access to specific insights from those groups. And we also have a broader community of people who are virtual members of Fox and engage on our website. We get to survey them, we know what they're looking for, and that gives us access to broader data. With that community, we do some benchmarking work. Every year we do a family office benchmarking, asking our members a broad range of questions having to do with the cost of running a family office, with the performance of their investments, with their asset allocation, with the services that they provide. And as you can imagine, that provides for us incredible insights. We do a broad range of surveys on investments, on compensation, and we run a lot of meetings, conferences, not dissimilar to this one, where we also get to interact with our members very closely. With that information, we do some research, we identify some insights, and obviously some trends. So that's kind of the world of Fox, to put things a little bit in context. So thinking about trends, how should trends be assessed? And families often ask us, or advisors, you talk about trends, what does it mean? And how should we look at a trend and see if it's significant or not, if we should pay attention to it, or if we should ignore it? And we really see trends as something that has an impact that's driven by two things. It's driven by the magnitude of the trend and the pace of change. So think about it a little bit as an object coming towards you. If it's big and if it's coming fast, it's going to have a lot more impact than if it's small and it's coming fast, or it could be very big but coming very, very slowly. And misreading, the magnitude or the pace of change can have significant consequences, as you can see in this drawing. So we came up with a list of top 10 trends by starting with a longer list. I mean, we keep a bank of trends, if you will, things that we track, things that we hear about, things that we think might be emerging and coming down the pike. But we went back to one of our council groups, the Multifamily Office Council, with this longer list of trends and asked them to rate them on those two axes that I mentioned, the magnitude and the pace of change. And with that ranking, we were able to produce a top 10 list that you see here. I'm not going to read them now because we're going to go through each of them, but these were the ones that were scoring the highest on those two dimensions of magnitude and pace of change. So for each of those trends, I'm going to do two things. I will describe each of the strands. I will provide some supporting evidence that will help you understand, how those trends are manifesting themselves, if you will. I will talk to you about how we're seeing some members in our community respond to those trends, whether they're families or advisors. And I will leave you with some questions and thoughts about what it may mean for your organization, whether you're a family or an advisor. So let's start with the first trend. And the first trend is the fact that rapid technology advances are threatening the protection of client assets, privacy, and security. As you know, it's a great concern for families, it's a great concern for advisors, and there's no easy solution to address this challenge. It's impacting not only tools and technology solutions that families and advisors are using, it's also impacting their behaviors. And we're seeing, families spend a lot of time upgrading the technology for greater security, but then find out, for example, that the children are posting a lot of things on Facebook, telling the world that they're going to be away for 2 weeks, that the family home is going to be empty, that they're going to be traveling with the patriarch who's worth $1 billion. And there's all sorts of behaviors that need to be changed in addition to enhancing the security of the technology that we use. So some supporting evidence from research that we track carefully. The first one is from PwC, identifying that the wealthiest households in the US have a 43% greater likelihood of experiencing identity fraud versus the general population. And the second one is the fact that, and that comes from PwC also, global financial services firm, 39% of them have experienced cybercrime. So it's well spread, we hear about it every day, and there's no sign of this trend weakening. It's also something that our community, perceives greatly. We asked our Family Office Executive Council, which is formed of CEOs of multi-generational, very significant family offices, what is the types of issues that keep them awake at night? What are the types of issues that keep them awake at night? And the number one issue was communication security. And we asked a similar question in our membership survey, asking our members to help us identify what would be good topics for programming, for events, for white papers, for research. And 67% of them indicated that information management and technology architecture was an extremely important or very important topic that they wanted to see covered. And 66% identified that risk management and protecting the family was also something critical to their success. So how, do families, how do advisors respond to this trend, and here specifically to the threats presented to them? So we're seeing some of the executive council's members, some of the CEOs of family offices actively seek education, advice, and solutions. And as I said before, it's not just about technology solutions. Sometimes it's about changing behaviors. It's about raising awareness in the family. Some of them have hired chief information security officers to make sure that there's one dedicated person in the organization focused on dealing with those issues of protecting confidentiality, security, and privacy. We're seeing, obviously, the advisors respond to this trend. Some perform penetration testing for their clients as a test and to show them that there are some weaknesses in their technology security systems. More and more are conducting research and providing education on cyber risk to their clients. Some insurance providers actually provide now in the US cyber insurance where you can pay to be protected for those types of risks. So there's definitely a greater focus. And you know, as you think about those issues for yourself as a family or for your clients as an advisor, I want to leave you with a few thoughts about how concerned are you and how much are you doing today to address those issues. As an advisor, what are you telling your clients about your security practices? Are you proactively communicating on those issues? How are you advising your clients to change their behaviors to make sure that they're less exposed and less at risk? And as a family of wealth, what questions should you ask to your team providing technology solutions, but also to the advisors that you work with? Because we find that a lot of families are now starting to ask a lot more questions because they want to understand how well they are protected and how exposed they are and what they should do about it. So let's move to the second trend. And the second trend is that the fact that advisors are realigning their service models to optimize client experience. So we've seen in the advisor world periods of growth and consolidation for private banks, for multifamily offices, for trust companies. And it seems that that phase of consolidation is mostly behind us, and we're entering a new phase where a lot of advisors are focusing on the client experience, trying to identify very clearly, very granularly, the various processes by which they interact with a client. The number of interactions, the type of interactions. And they're doing this, let's face it, in part for the clients to make sure that the client experience is enhanced, but also in part for themselves because they want to find the most productive, efficient model to get the work done. And most advisors are trying to strike the right balance between providing a seamless, providing an efficient, pleasant interaction with their clients, but also optimizing the productivity on their end. So some evidence of this trend, we've asked our members to tell us, on the advisor side, what are some of the issues that they found important and were focusing on. And 80% of them identified finding the optimal client experience and service delivery process as a high importance item for their success moving forward. And then the flip side to that focus from the advisors that we work with is that a lot of investors actually disagree with the focus on the client experience, or at least don't see it today. And we found that 4 out of 5 investors disagree with the statement that investment organizations understand what investors want. So there's definitely a gap there between what the clients, what the market perceives, and what advisors think they're doing, which therefore drives the desire to focus more on the client experience. So more supporting evidence. Here is some industry research on client service and asking investors to assign an important score to advisor experience. And what's interesting here is you can see that there's a very significant gap between investors age 60 and beyond and investors below 40. And the level of importance that they assign to the client experience goes from 78 to 58. That's a 20% gap, which is critical. And what that means is, in the client experience focus, advisors are increasingly trying to segment their approach, understanding that in the broad range of clients that they're serving, Not all of them are seeking the same type of client experience, and it needs to be customized, it needs to be adapted to the various segments. Doing this in a way that remains profitable is obviously the critical issue here. Advances in technology in many ways are helping to improve the client experience, are providing at least new tools to do that, enabling advisors to better understand what clients want and when they want it and how they want it, and also giving them more intelligence about their clients, their needs, their expectation,